name is Jim Frisinger. I've lived in Texas since 1984. I came down here from Michigan. I'm a retired daily newspaper journalist. I worked at all 3 daily newspapers in Dallas-Fort Worth at one time or another, and I finished my career at the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers for 9 years in Fort Worth. And that's actually where I got my environmental chops, because most people don't realize that the Fort Worth district of the Corps of Engineers has more environmentalists on payroll than any place else in Tarrant County, maybe any place else in North Texas. So I worked around a lot of these good people. I learned a lot, and one of my assignments at the very end was some ecosystem restoration projects around Lake Lewisville, along the Trinity River in Dallas, as well as along the Rio Grande. So this was really a great education, and I continued it by volunteering for about the last decade out at the Sheri Nature Preserve, where I'm a volunteer leader and a member of the board of directors. So that's sort of my background. So I want to start by emphasizing that when you're talking about trees and the history of trees, we're really talking about the relationship between people and trees. And the result is an awful lot of interesting stories, some good, some bad, some sideways, almost always involving human beings in some respect. And I'm going to start by talking a little bit about the Comanches and their world, which has often been called the Comanche area. The Comanches had a very large presence in Texas. And in fact, few people know that they had a communication system across much of Texas, extending as far east as the eastern edge of Dallas County today, and heading into, I don't know all the towns in central Texas, but back in there. And this communication system, information is power. And communications included not just a trail system for which they set up a number of trail markers to help them navigate this, or to help them know where the best place to go to ford the Trinity River, but they also had a series of smoke signal stations. These were stations set up within sight of each other so they could communicate whether there were enemy coming or friendlies coming. They could communicate using smoke signals. Some of those have been very specifically identified, such as in eastern Dallas County. There are some that have been specifically identified. There's one where I am on the Sheri Nature Reserve. It's suspected that it's a smoke signal station because it's a very high point. It's visible to some other high points that would be ideal. So, but it's just speculation at this point. In any case, they had the network of these smoke signal stations and the trails between them. And the Comanches had their own language, of course. And on TV, you may have heard people bloviating about, you know, people want to come to this country, they should learn the local language. So I'm going to teach you 3 words in Comanche so you can help to assimilate into the native people. So the first one will go 2 words, Nayuru Hoopy. That means trail tree. That trail trees that they use to mark the trails. We often call them Indian marker trees, but I think they're all Comanche built trees. There are 20 of them that have been firmly identified in in Texas. However, there have been applications to investigate 1,000 trees. A lot of them are not marker trees. They may look like it. Not all marker trees are even bent over like we think. But they have a system of sifting through to decide whether the tree really is a marker tree. And often they use elders from the existing Comanche tribe that they bring in, and they sort of get a feel for the land. And the first one I'm going to talk about is called the Storytelling Place. And this is in Dallas County, and it's within the White Rock Heritage District, and it's open to the public so you can go visit it. And how the Comanches decided that this tree, which is the Texas red oak, 170 years old, was a Nayuru Hoopy, is because it was the ideal location. It was close to water, it was close to game areas. It also had a natural amphitheater in limestone where this tree was. So they could camp there and they could have storytelling. That's why it's called Storytelling Place. As we move to the west, of these trees that are in our area. The next one is on private land, so you can't go visit it, but it's called the Cedar Ridge marker tree. And the thing about it, it is an eastern red cedar tree. And so we have an approved Comanche word for eastern red cedar. Eastern red cedar is kind of a mouthful, it's not very good, but the Comanche word is equapi. Equapi, that's a much better term. So you start using this when you're giving tours out here, and you've got an eastern red cedar. It's the native language, what they used to call it. If we go a little bit further to the west, California Crossing. You may be familiar with this. This is a park in the city of Dallas, and it's called California Crossing. It's of the Trinity River. It's a reference to the crossing of the Trinity River. It's a historic sort of easier crossing, low water crossing, if you will, of the Trinity River. And it's called California Crossing because the 49ers in the gold rush, that's the route that they took across the Trinity River. Well, Comanches had been there long before that, and they'd marked that with their own marker tree. So there is a marker tree that you can go and visit. I haven't personally seen this one. It's a pecan, it's 180 years old, but should be a good one to go look at. So if you, when you're out in that area, you should try to find it out. And as with a lot of these marker trees, it may be a bit of a puzzle and take investigative work in order to find them. One of the things we've found is that people are very protective for the trees, so they may not make it easy to find. So which is the case of the Caddo Oak that I'll be talking about in a few minutes. Across from the California Crossing is another marker tree, which we have pictures of, but it's deteriorated probably through lightning strikes and so on, and it was near Bird's Fort. Bird's Fort, I know a lot of people here will know from Arlington. Bird's Fort is sort of on the Arlington-Irving border. It's on the north side of Arlington. There was a fort built there in the middle 1800s as the military tried to secure the border, so to speak, to protect the European invaders from the people that lived here already. So in any case, that was a destination for a lot of people. So the tree was pointed, this marker tree was pointed at California Crossing once you got across the river to where the Bird's Fort was. So that was very, very helpful. And then further to the west, and this one we don't know, it's in Tarrant County somewhere, it's a post oak. It's on private land, so we don't know very much about it, but we can tell you that it wasn't certified as a legitimate market tree until 2019. So this is an ongoing process of identifying these and making sure that they are what they are. So now we move to my home place, which is the Sheri Nature Preserve. And this is another example of how these historic trees, now this is not a marker tree, but it's a historic tree as designated by the Texas Historic outfit that researches historic trees. So this is a two-part story. This is two stories wrapped in one. We're going to talk first about the Caddo Oak. Caddo Oak is a very recent discovery. When we were in the early days of the Sheri Nature Preserve, back when it was called the Southwest Nature Preserve, still today we're discovering all sorts of things. And so we invited an arborist. You may be familiar with Wes Culwell. He's a well-known arborist in Tarrant County. He's been around for a long time. We invited him to come out and walk with us through the preserve. We're walking through the preserve on this trail, and we're walking along the north side of the preserve, and he looks up and he sees this tree, and he says, "This is a really, really old tree. You should check it out." So we did. And what we discovered is that it's at least 200 years old. It's got such a big, it's got a 54-inch diameter trunk. It takes at least 3 people to join hands to reach around the trunk of this post oak. So it's been there for 200 years, possibly 250 years. It makes it the oldest post oak in the city of Arlington. So this is a very historic tree, and we had to name it. So we named it the Caddo Indian. Why? Because the Caddo Indians were among the tribes that were driven out of East Texas by the Trail of Tears, by the Indian Removal Act under President Jackson. So they were fleeing for their lives further west where they would be safe. So they took up residence along Village Creek. And we know this because they were the first of 2 military expeditions trying to move them to expel them further, they took notes, the military men took notes, and they discovered a village of 3,000 people living along Village Creek. There were 25 homes, lodges, Indian lodges. And the lodges had feather beds in them. I mean, a lot of the Native Americans of these tribes wore regular settler clothes. You got a question over there?
I was going to say, Pantego is named after a chief.
Oh, very good. Thank you. Very good.
Mm.
And when they grew, and they were farmers, so they had about 300 acres under cultivation, and they were growing the typical things of the time, squash and corn and so forth, just what the settlers were growing. Well, the settlers were coming in, and they wanted free land, so they were eventually driven by the Texas military further west. In any case, the Caddo were living when this Caddo Oak was a sapling. So they lived in the immediate vicinity. And we've got all sorts of relics of Indian heads and so forth, arrowheads and so forth to indicate an Indian presence. But it wasn't the only tribe, but it's the largest of the tribes that were living along Village Creek at the time. So we got the tree designated as a Texas historic tree, and I think it's the only one designated in Tarrant County by this organization. So we moved from this tree, which is in pretty good shape. It's protected inside this preserve, and it's not marked. So you have to know where it is. And I've got brochures with maps in them, and I've marked where that is. So if you want to go out to the Sheri Caper, you can find it. So
You think we can trust this group?
Yeah, I don't know. After this next story, you might not be so sure. You may have heard of the Treaty Oak in Austin.
Yes.
It was poisoned, okay? A lot of people have heard the story. It happened simultaneously with another story about the witness tree. So I'm going to talk about these two trees, the witness tree in Arlington. How many of you, raise your hand if you know about the witness trees? Okay. There was an effort by Capehart and a developer to wanting to develop some land at the corner of Cooper Street and I-20, the southwest corner of I-20 and Cooper Street. The Baird Farm, after Baird Road. Mr. Baird, Bill Baird, decided to sell the land, but he was concerned about this tree. It was a very large tree. In fact, it was a historic tree called the witness tree. It was a very prominent tree. You know, you never know whether the stories about this are true or not, but supposedly there were weddings held there, contracts were signed, surveys were done related to this tree, and even hangings were done from the tree. So it's a very, very well-known tree and very prominent. So Bill Baird was concerned about this tree, but not concerned not to sell the land. But he made arrangements to see if he could save the tree. So he arranged to have some land set aside just south of the shopping center where they could move the tree. Well, any of you that know about post oaks, they're extremely sensitive, and if you try to move a post oak, it's probably a death sentence. So in the, in 1992, they moved the tree from the future Kmart parking lot to this spot just south, and it died shortly thereafter. And Kmart died shortly after that, so it was kind of a lose situation. And the saddest thing, if you want to go to the saddest part of Arlington, you can go to the Witness Tree Memorial Park. They have this little set of land where they moved the tree to, and suspended from two chains is a remnant of the trunk of this tree. It's the saddest darn thing you've ever seen in my life. It's like I don't know why they keep it up, why they keep it growing, but it's in memory of the witness tree. So we're going to compare this to what happens to the Treaty Oak in Austin. The Treaty Oak, again, the name is probably totally misleading. There's no mention of Treaty Oak prior to 1920, and that's an important time because the owner of this farm, a woman, was going to lose the land because of taxes. So she was going to sell the land, and some women in Austin came together. They knew this was a great tree. This was a 500-year-old tree. We know that much. Very large tree. And so they got together, and they said, let's see if we can buy the land. So they did buy the land and give it to the city of Austin to protect it. So along comes 1989. the same time that the witness tree is being moved. And a guy goes up and he poisons the soil all around and uses an herbicide called Velper. Velper is used just to kill trees. That's its own purpose in life and death, is to kill trees. And he poured lots and lots of this poison all around the base of the tree, and the tree starts to die. Everybody's very concerned. This is an Austin landmark, and so immediately their actions are taken to try to save the tree. It becomes a nationwide phenomenon as people are concerned about this tree. And so amongst this concern, Ross Perot writes a blank check and says, we'll spend whatever you need to spend to save the tree. And so they end up spending $100,000 to try to save the tree. And they try 5 different things to try to save the tree. And I've written them down because I can't remember them off the top of my head. First obvious thing was to remove the soil that was contaminated. So they did that. It was too late. The poison had already gotten into the tree. Then they covered the tree with misters and shade so it wasn't as harsh. So they removed the soil, they shaded the tree, they misted it. Then they injected salt into the trunk, thinking that this would force the poison out of the trunk of the tree. It was still dying. Then they amputated a number of the roots. The roots would not continue to send the poison up to the trunk of the tree. It was still dying. Then they injected sugar water into the tree in an attempt to revive the tree. The tree's dying. Steps are being made to commemorate the death of the tree. They start giving away hunks of the dead limbs. People start making brickbats to make money out of the tree, like pens out of the wood and so on and so forth. They're raising money. They've got such concern from around the country, and all sorts of visitors pour into the tree to pray for the tree. The Dalai Lama is making a tour of the United States, and they interrupt the tour so his monks can come around, and they come to Austin and chant around the tree because they're so concerned about the tree. The tree is dying. And so they raised $250,000 in order to commemorate the death of this tree, except something happened. It didn't die.
Oh, wow.
A third of the tree has survived to this day. So now they not commemorate the saving of this tree. And our poor guy, the Paul Cullen, who was identified soon after as the dirty dog that dumped all the herbicide, he got a 9-year prison sentence for what he did. And there's never been a clear understanding of why he did what he did, but the tree was saved. The witness tree in Arlington, gone forever. The so-called Treaty Oak in Austin saved. So pretty cool stuff. A couple others I want to mention. I'm running out of time. I want to talk a little bit about the Bur Oak at Big Spring, another historic tree, not a market tree, but a historic tree. Big Spring is a perennial spring in the east side of Dallas, not too far from the Trinity River. It's been a very, very popular spot because of the spring, and so it's been the earliest spot of European settlement since about 1841 or 1842. And it's made most famous because Sam Houston, president of the Republic of Texas, stopped here to camp because this was a campsite with water and shade and so forth. And this tree is a Bur Oak, 245 years old. So it's a giant, giant tree, and it's on public property. So Sam Houston is on his way from Austin to go to Bird's Fort because he's leading a delegation to sign treaties with Indians. So he stops there for the night, and he continues along the trail, crosses at California, crossing up to Bird's Fort. This is the well-traveled area, so it's a beautiful tree. So two other trees, historic trees I want to mention. The Ben Milam Cypress. Ben Milam is a Texas revolutionary. Before the Alamo happens, or the fall of the Alamo, the Spanish controlled San Antonio, and he led a group of 300 men, volunteers, to try to take back the city of San Antonio from the Mexican army. So they invade. This is like a 6 or 7 day battle. In the middle of the battle, he's standing in a courtyard along the San Antonio River, walled courtyard. But up in the tree is a Mexican sniper. He's up in the Cypress tree, many, many feet high, and he can see down over the walls. And so he shoots Ben Milam in the head, and he shoots him dead. So the commander is dead, but the army has succeeded 2 or 3 days later. They take the city, and of course it's held until the Alamo takes place later in the year. Or you can go visit the Ben Milam Cypress. It's right along the Riverwalk and downtown San Antonio. And then the last one I want to mention is the Goose Island Oak. Goose Island is near Rockport. There's a state park. Goose Island is a phenomenal tree. It's estimated easily as the oldest tree in the state of Texas, about 1,000 years old. It's a live oak tree, and it's withstood an awful lot of hard time being near the coast, including the Hurricane Harvey, a Category 5, Category 4 hurricane that came through in 2017, and it stood up just fine. It once was a state champion tree. I don't think it's no longer considered a state champion tree. I'm not sure how they measure these things, whether height or width or whatever, but this particular tree has 421-inch around the trunk and a crown of 89 feet, so it's really a huge, huge tree, and I encourage you all to visit. And 2 others that I want to mention real quickly, because my time is up, is there are 2 national champion trees in Tarrant County that exist. One of them is a Buckley Oak. I never could understand how you could tell it Buckley Oak, also called a Texas oak, all the other oak, but it's a distinct species. It's 55 feet high, 113 feet wide. It's in a neighborhood. It's in somebody's yard, so it's private, but you can see it if you look. You've seen a picture of this gigantic tree. It's just in some subdivision. The other is a national champion mesquite tree, and that one is easily visible. It's near the Will Rogers complex on Lancaster Avenue. It's near the Will Rogers statue. So it being a mesquite tree, it's not very high. It's 43 feet high, but for mesquite, that's pretty high. So I encourage you to check that out. Now, I've got in my hands here some brochures I'd like to hand out, or I marked a Caddo Oak so you can visit. It's very easy to see once you walk up the trail. There's a very main trail that goes up right past the site, and I've included also 2 little pieces of paper in here so you can read about the Texas Historic Tree Coalition. They have a website that tells the story of all these historic trees, some of which I've talked about, but they're mostly in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And there's also a website for the Texas Big Tree Registry, which talks about trees across the state. That's also related to the book on Texas trees that you gave me. It's also from Texas A&M, and they essentially update that book with what's current with those things. So and then in the back of this reserve is a map. So right here is the north side of the preserve. The parking lot is down here. There's Bowman Springs, and the tree is right up here. Marked, not on this one.
Bordering the North Prairie.
Yeah, and it's so large you really can't miss it. This is not marked either. Let's try this one.
And if you get to all the yucca,
there you go. It's an X with a circle on it.
Yucca, you've passed it. We have the yucca field that is.
Are all these trees maintained by the state or privately, or?
It's all a jumble. Some of them are in state parks, some of them are in city parks, some of them are on private land.
So they are maintained, trimmed periodically, or?
You know, there's a discussion that goes on among arborists. Do you just leave them alone as far as the limbs? Do you cut them off when they start to be damaged? What do you do about the ground cover underneath? So I've heard. Any questions?
How old does a tree have to be considered special?
Again, that's a little bit up in the air. A lot of it has to do with his historic. So that means its relationship to people and to events. So it doesn't need to be necessarily that big, but it has to be significant. It has to be prominent. The word is prominent. It has to be a prominent tree for this to count.
Okay.
What a treat. Thank you so
Okay.
very much.
I encourage you to come
Guys,
up.
Thank you.
But I think this is a good thing for all of us. If you see a tree in your neighborhood that you wonder about, maybe it needs to be checked out. Maybe it's one of those famous ones that we can locate. But
For instance, there is one in Arlington that I've been told about. It's in a private person's property. We've gotten word to this person that we would like to have it considered for a Texas historic tree, and they can work with homeowners to make sure their privacy is respected, that there's no map or anything like that. This is a tree that the oral tradition suggests the cattle drovers stopped under this tree. It's in South Arlington on their way to the stockyards. It was approximately, I don't know, 1 or 2 days drive from the stockyards. So it was a traditional place where they'd stop. Great shade, these trees, they great trees provide shade, which in the summertime is critical if you want to camp out in Texas. But so far, nothing's happened with this particular homeowner, and I don't know the precise street.
I heard that some of the native Indians have a ceremony and they want to keep it a secret. So they can, worship around
I
it.
know this tree. I've been
Yeah,
there.
you have been there.
I've been there.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.